started last year very successfully, and we continue this year. We have industry professionals talking here, and starting now with a first presentation. This year's presentation is dedicated to the 6 major problems that were identified by Tom from the Absolute Sound. Here he is, about the believability in the replay chain. And the replay chain is, of course, everything you have from the performance till it's in your living room. And as a speaker manufacturer, we are not only, or there are some things we cannot repair that have been done during the previous processes in the stage before the signal reaches the loudspeaker. And we tend, in order to have a very believable and a very authentic recording, we need to consider this as a holistic approach. A holistic approach in terms that we have to consider the whole package, from the performance of the artist to the recording venue, the recording gear, the recording method and technique, to the conservation on a medium, be it digital or analog, and then to the way this conserve is gonna be manipulated, post-processed, whatsoever, in order to reach our amplifiers, and from our amplifiers to the membranes of our loudspeakers and to your ear finally. The goal is to bring you to that,
that was me, sorry, I didn't know.
To the venue, and that's one of the possible goals in audio. So we don't consider that kind of absolute. Some people like to have audio to have the best feeling in front of a glass of wine and enjoy the evening, and some people goal is to have an authentic reproduction of what happened in the studio and at the recording venue, and to transport the music, the emotions that the artist intended in the most authentic, convincing way. And there are many disciplines involved, and we wanted to start with the first one about the issues in recording and what especially minimal mic recording can do in that field. And we have the pleasure to have a very specialist in minimal mic recording here. And I'm happy to introduce you to Barry Diament from Soundkeeper Recordings. It's your floor.
Hold that one for now. We'll start that one later. And when we bring that in, we'll pump it up. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here. It's an honor. Oh, also today we're going to be announcing the winner of the minimal miking contest that Linkwitz Audio has run. So I'm very excited to be able to announce the winner to you. But first, I want to talk about a few things. Maybe a movie with 5 different scenes. The question is, how do you make a recording that transports the listener to the performance event, into the space where it occurred? There's lots of ways to make a pleasant recording, and most of the records we love were not made with minimal miking techniques. But I'm standing in the control room of the first studio I worked at. I looked for my first job out of college for about a year, and now I'm a 21-year-old audiophile standing behind the console, checking all the microphones I've set up for the upcoming session. The chief engineer has instructed me on where he wants all the microphones. I've set up the mics on the piano, the drums. We have a basic rhythm section going, piano, drums, guitar, and bass. Typically how records are made, you'll see a basic rhythm section, then the overdubs begin, and maybe finally the lead vocal will be put down. So I'm bringing up all the vocals, I'm bringing up all the instruments and the individual faders on the console. It's a dream job. I'm finally here after all these years. And I go out into the studio and I look around, I'm listening to the musicians warming up. And then I go back into the control room, and I've done this now for, I don't know, maybe 100 times. And it dawns on me that what I hear in the control room doesn't sound anything like what I hear out in the room with the musicians. So I started to get curious about how can I get that experience? Because that's really the one I want. There's typical studio recordings with the close miking of everything can create a very pleasant experience, but it sounds like a record to me and not like a performance. I want the record to disappear. So how do I make the record disappear? Let's see, the next scene I'm going to take you to is a church I'm at Atlantic Studios now. I finally got a job at Atlantic. I moved from the studio I was at, and a job for an editor opened at Atlantic, and I had experience editing. My initial job at Atlantic was to make long songs shorter and short songs longer. We'd have a 5-minute album version. They'd need to cut it down to 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes to get radio play. And those were the days of the dance clubs. So I'd have to take that 5-minute version and make an 11 or 12-minute version by doubling solos, making the first verse come back again, a couple of extra chorus instances. And I got my first chance to try recording without using an ocean of microphones. I got permission from the studio manager at Atlantic to do a recording using Studio A, where so many of my favorite recordings were made, in the jazz world, in the rock world, all kinds of stuff that we know were done in Studio A. So I got permission as long as the scheduled sessions ended. So I had a band come in the evening, and at 3 a.m. we got into the studio, and we did our first recording. That was my first 2-mic recording. I decided I wanted to use only 1 mic per playback channel. I didn't want to have multiple time arrivals, which would be the case with multiple microphones. If I had, the way it was initially recorded, we'd have 7 mics on a set of drums. Now that snare drum had a close mic on it, but it would also be picked up by the mic on the floor tom-tom and the overheads. And to my ears, those multiple arrivals took away from the focus. So I wanted to do a test with just 1 time signal per playback channel. And what I found was I got a lot of focus. It improved a lot. There were still things that needed to be fixed. My mic arrangement was, I think my mics were a little bit too far apart. I wasn't as good at placing the musicians. But the next day I was listening to a playback of the recording that we did, and the chief engineer came in and listened with me, and he asked me what I used to get the room sound. We had eventide boxes and all sorts of things, and I wasn't trying to be a wise guy or anything. I was just being very straight, and my answer was the room. So the next scene, we're going into a church deep in upstate New York. I have a friend who consented to put his band up in front of the mics and take a chance without having the typical fixes in the studio. No overdubs, no patch-ins, no punch-ins, no mix. The band had to actually really listen to each other. The mix happened instead of pushing faders on a console, we pushed instruments and amplifiers and moved them around. I would ask someone to take a half step in, maybe move in a little this way, I'm not getting enough of you, come in. And then we just let it go and start the recording. So we did our first recording there, and I started thinking, just prior to this, what do I really need to make that recording that disappears? I need to capture the tone, I need to capture the space in which it occurs, because when I'm listening to the band playing live, I'm not hearing them in 1 location or 2 locations. They're spread out. I want everyone's location in depth as well, because the background singers are in the background. The drummer may not be up front. I want to hear everyone where they're coming from. And I started wondering, how do we localize sound? How do humans localize sounds? How can we tell where something's coming from even with our eyes closed? And what I found was that we use 3 types of cues. We use, for example, a sound originating on my left will be louder at my left ear than it will on my right ear. It will arrive at my left ear sooner than it gets to my right ear. And at my right ear, it will lose some of the high frequencies because my head's in the way. So I decided if nature could get by with fewer than 3 types of cues, it would have done so. So I want to supply all 3 types of cues in my recordings. So I have the most neutral microphones I've heard to date. I have a pair of these omnidirectional microphones. I played with the spacing. That original Atlantic recording had the mics about 6 feet apart because I thought there should be some reciprocity between typical speaker placement and typical mic placement. That didn't work out because if someone was in the center and they moved slightly off center, on playback they went all the way to the side. So I had to find another way. And I spent some time in my room making a number of recordings with different mic spacings between these microphones. And I'd knock on a piece of wood and say I'm standing in the center, 1 foot to the left, stepping forward, etc. What I found was when I got to about 16 inches, they invited me to warm up and called me in the morning and said, we blew the power in the church. This was an electric band. We had electric bass, electric guitar. Okay, so I decided to drive up anyway. And I think it was the band leader who noticed there was a house about 400 feet away in the woods. And one of the guys in the band happened to have a day job as a contractor. And he had tons of extensions in the back of his Jeep. So the leader went to speak to the people in the house. They invited us to use their power. So nice. And we ran extensions through the woods. And I finally got to do the recording. I did the recording and I learned something else that day, because when I listened back, it had all the focus I wanted. Everyone was placed where I thought I heard them when I stood at the position of the mic array. But the recording sounded like the band was in the next town. It didn't work out. It was a very reverberant church, and I was thinking in terms of classical recordings and how Bob Fine might have captured an orchestra, but I was capturing a 4-piece rock band. So that didn't work out. So I learned something. Every project involves learning something. The band came back again, I think it was maybe a year later, and I implemented what I learned. We were in the same church deep in upstate New York, and that became the first release on my label, on Soundkeeper. But there's still more, aside from the pressure recording directly puts on the band and on the engineer, there's other things that are out of our control. At the end of one of the songs on this album, the band is playing live now. They're playing the last chord of the song, and it's dying out in the reverb of the church. They play the last chord 1 note at a time. It's an A minor, so the last notes are A, C, and E. And as that E note is dying out in the church, the mics very clearly picked up a fly all the way at the back of the church, buzzing in E flat. So really, so it made it sound like the last chord kind of sunk. So the band had to play it again, and they nailed it the second time. So that became the first release on Soundkeeper. The second release, which is the first sample that we'll hear today, was of a Haitian jazz quartet that I got turned on to by a friend, and they turned me on to the music of Haiti and their interpretations of it. And I was sending the records out, of course, always trying to get reviews to get the word out about Soundkeeper, because it's a little artisan label, boutique label. And I got very nice reviews on a number of websites, a number of magazines, and I thought, boy, how great it would be to be in one of the big magazines. And I sent it to all the magazines. And I ended up hearing from Stereophile. They were going to review the album. Fantastic, I'm in Stereophile. They made it recording of the month. So I was really thrilled by that. And that's the first sample I want to play for you. And the last scene in the movie is I'm standing here at AXPONA sharing the scene, and thank you so much. I look forward to announcing the winner of the Minimal Microphoning Contest, because we need this to continue, and it's great if some new engineering students get interested in this type of technique, because the studio is wonderful and being able to mix is great, and you can create wonderful music that way, wonderful stuff, but it doesn't sound convincing. And there's something about a record that acts as a time portal, a time and space portal to the event. Because that's what I really want. I mean, if I could have any music I want live anytime I want, I wouldn't need all this wonderful stuff. But I can't. So I need this stuff, and in order to get to that music, I want records that disappear. That's what I'm working on. Thank you very much. I'd like to play you a sample from that recording that I just mentioned.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. There were two things I had left out that I wanted to mention. Oh, early in those days when I first spoke to the chief engineer at my first job and said, how come it doesn't sound in here like it sounds out there? And I explained what I was interested in as an audiophile. And he said, you can't do that with non-classical music. And I'm wondering why, because I bring the same set of ears to a reggae show I bring the same that I bring to the symphony. If I'm going to hear AC/DC, I'm not changing ears. So part of what Soundkeeper is more than a company, a record label. It's my quest to try and show that it doesn't matter what kind of music it is. The mics don't care. The mics don't know the difference between a symphony orchestra and a dub band. We want to capture that. The other thing I left out was what's needed for the recording is dynamic range. Personally, I think dynamic range is one of the last frontiers in making recordings that sound convincing. And how do you keep the dynamic range? You don't touch it. It's really simple. So that's what I do here. So the records, if you compare them to a typical rock pop record, the average level, you're going to have to turn your volume up. They're going to sound really low. But that's because I'm leaving room for those peaks to rise rather than squashing them down in order to raise the low level sound. So one of the other examples that I'd like to play is a country band that I came upon whose music really appealed to me. And this is another example of, well, can you record them in an audiophile fashion? So again, this is just the same mic array, one mic per playback channel with the baffle between them, fed by Nordos cables into my mic preamp A to D converter box, which is made by a company called Metric Halo. They're a pro-leaning company. And this is the Cosmic American Derelicts, recorded in a barn. Of course.
40 years I've been a lighthouse keeper, and I weathered the wind, rain, and snow. When I was young, there was this senorita who stole my heart and ran off with my soul. I sit here every day watching the tides roll and sway. Standing here I see the waves crash on the stone. Signal ships out there on the horizon. Where is my ship to come and take me home?
And maybe one more sample. I've always loved jazz. I like all kinds of music, but I have a particular affinity, I suppose, for a jazz quartet, a jazz quintet. So the bass player on the first selection you heard has his own band, and the U.S. State Department, I believe, sent them on a goodwill tour of Central and South America. And while there, they learned songs in each of the locales and taught their music to the people there. So they came back and we recorded an album that they decided to call Americas. And I want to play you a piece from that. We're going to jump into the middle of the piece. I believe it's by a Brazilian composer whose name, I apologize, eludes me at the moment. We want to jump in around 2:45. By the way, the stand-up bass, the contrabass in all of these is unamplified because I want you to feel flesh on strings and feel wood. And when a stand-up is amplified, I find the sound changes radically. It becomes another instrument. And I really wanted to hear an organic sounding bass on all these recordings. And now I think we're ready for the winner of the contest, who's coming next to create these recordings for us.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
We have the winner track, you can listen to it. And as usually, we have an envelope. It's a digital envelope. And I hand over the envelope to Barry to announce the winner of this year's contest.
Oh, may I?
That fanfare, please.
Hold on a second. Prior to the envelope, I had something I want you to say to the winners here. To all the people that entered, actually. Just a paragraph. To all who entered the contest, my thanks, my gratitude, and my admiration. You've shown that you're bold and original in endeavoring to record, as I call it, without a net. While the approach seems simple at first, the demands on the engineer as well as the players are significantly greater. So too are the rewards. Every project is a learning experience. There will be things you did that you will remember to do again next time, and there'll be things you did that you will remember not to do next time. This is all part of the process. Please continue with such strivings. The music and those who love it need you. Thank you. And the winner is...
That's pretty good.
Georgios Dekos and Alice Van Biesen. Congratulations. From the Netherlands.
Nice to see you.
Oh, sorry.
And now you have the pleasure to hear the winner song on our system. The king seat is still available, or queen seat. Would the queen join the first seat?
Sure.
And enjoy the winner song, Giorgio Baker's.
same thing you
You did it with
Yeah, here you can see the venue where the guys recorded the winner song. And I'm happy to invite all young sound engineers, students, to participate in our this year's contest to get winner of the Linkwitz Minimal Microphone Medal 2026.
Okay.
And just after the show, we will open the new contest, and the winners of this year's contest on the Munich show, we will hand them over the medal itself and the prize of $1,000,
Oh, nice.
so they can buy the best equipment
Yeah.
or part of the best equipment, at least the cable.
Damn good cable.
Damn good cable. For the one mic recording, but for the one mic recording you don't need that many cables, so that
That's
saves
right.
you a little
That's
bit.